Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller forecast for Sagittarius for October 2015. Go to my website, aspiritualspark.com, to see more about my current offerings and to become part of my VIP crew by signing up for my free email newsletter and get all the perks that go along with that. So we've got a very active month of October. We have a lot of things that are left over from previous times that are still affecting us in October, and we have our own things in October that are going on, or additional things going on in October to add to the whole story. So let's talk about some general implications that we'll all be working with and some things specific to Sagittarius that are very important. Lots of exciting things going on involving Jupiter and involving the ninth house. Jupiter is Sagittarius's ruling planet, so we always want to watch what Jupiter is doing more carefully than anything else. And we want to watch what's happening in the ninth house more importantly than anything else, because Jupiter rules the ninth house, which is the house of Sagittarius. So this month, there's a tremendous amount of activity involving Jupiter and involving the ninth house. So we're going to talk about all of it. So let's talk about some general transits that are going to affect everyone. We still have the Venus retrograde shadow period, this long story of Venus retrograde that has been going on for months, does continue into October. We had Venus retrograde shadow period started at the end of June. Venus went retrograde at the end of July. Then it went direct on September 6th, but the shadow period lasts until October 9th. Venus rules love, beauty, and money, which covers a lot of ground as far as our personal, individual, daily experience. So understanding this is really important. And if you haven't already watched my Venus retrograde video, then I highly recommend that you do that, because understanding this transit, and especially if you're watching in August or September, you really want to understand the do's and don'ts and all of the things involving that. And between the video itself and the many posts that I answered and responded to below, there's quite a comprehensive picture of this transit. You can search for Annie Botticelli Venus retrograde. So definitely do that. So we have that still happening. The post-retrograde is kind of like, I always describe this as making a U-turn, and that time that after you're going back in the direction you want to go in, it's awkward. You're not quite up to full speed. Cars are zooming by you and like, are they gonna hit me? You know, it's like weird, it's uncomfortable, and you're not going back up to speed. So the pre-retrograde is like you're slowing down, you're cruising along at 60 miles an hour, and you're slowing down to make, the going backwards, and it's like that. So it's like this awkwardness in the transition. So even though Venus went direct on September 6th, you have until October 9th that all this awkwardness is kind of still getting worked out. And then as soon as the shadow period passes, you've got two challenging aspects with Venus, one with Saturn, a square with Saturn on October 10th, and an opposition with Neptune on October 16th, that are kind of like last doses of this Venus challenge story. But then by the time it's October 23rd and 24th, Venus is like, so happy. There's these amazing aspects with Pluto. There's a trine with Pluto and then a conjunction with Jupiter, your planet. So that is my day, that those days, October 23rd, October 24th, are really great for launching new things. If you've been waiting all this time, this is your shining moment. Like, wow, okay, it's time to make those decisions, to blaze forward. There's also going to be a challenging aspect nearby with Mercury opposing Uranus at that time, but there's so much momentum and energy that you might have something challenging going on at the same time that may or may not have anything to do with your project. It may be ancillary information that's kind of throwing you off, but it's still very positive overall for moving forward. So the end of October, all of November, and the beginning of December are your window before we start to get into the shadow period of Mercury again, where you can make some decisions, and you can, you've learned a lot, hopefully, from the retrograde cycle. You've uncovered a lot of information. You've gone back over things, and then it's time to do new things. Okay, so that's our little Venus story that we have. Now, regarding the eclipses, we've kind of got the aftermath of the eclipses in October. The eclipses happened in September. Some people will have started to get news about those in October, and a storyline will have begun. And you might get some additional doses of news, for better and worse, or some of you, a very small percentage of you, will actually get your full-on eclipse news into October. Sometimes it takes up to a month or so after the last eclipse, which is September 27th, to get the news. And some of you might have very recent news in the beginning of October that came at the end of September that is eclipse related. And eclipses bring in this life-changing news. Sometimes it's the best news ever, sometimes it's the worst news ever, sometimes you have those both at the same time. Very often you'll see a situation where there's a person who's going through major change. Like you're watching this like, whoa, they have a lot going on, and you have nothing going on, but you're holding space for the people who have things going on. And some people will be the ones having the change, some people will be the ones holding the space, and some people will be both, you know. So that's the energy of the eclipses, and that's carrying over into October. Then we've got Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde shadow period started August 29th. Mercury went retrograde on September 17th, and it goes direct on October 9th. So you see some of these days there's a lot going on in these clusters. So around October 9th, Mercury is just starting its awkwardness of starting to gather full steam, and that doesn't finish that post-retrograde shadow period until October 24th. So you can see why these things are lining up here as I'm saying, okay, by the time we get to October 23rd to October 24th, a lot of this energy, this awkwardness has cleared, and you'll kind of be able to see where you should be going. Okay, so we have all that going on. Now let's talk about something specific to Sag. So for you early degree placements, so if your birthdays are, if you're a November born Sag, or your rising sign is at an early degree, or if you're watching for your moon sign and that's at an early degree of Sag, then you have an early Sag placement, and you will have this huge cluster of planets, short-term moving planets, long-term moving planets, in your 10th house of career and work and life purpose. So lots of news, lots of information, lots of activity, lots of focus, lots of opportunities coming into your career. For you middle to later degree placements, if this is not happening for you just yet, don't worry, because some of these things, these planetary movements are staggered for you. So many of you Sages will actually have this huge cluster of planets still in your 9th house. And the 9th house is the house of Sagittarius. The 9th house is the house ruled by Jupiter. And for many of you, you actually have Jupiter in your 9th house. The rest of you, you early degree placements, have Jupiter moving into your 10th house, and that brings expansion. So the story of Jupiter, wherever it goes, is that you want to have, I call it, you want to have your fingers in a lot of pudding pies. Okay, it's a transit that wants a lot of diversity and wideness in what you're doing. So a lot of seed planting. It's not a time to do just one thing. I have a tremendous amount of Sag in my chart. I have a Sag sun and lots of Sag placements, so I understand this energy very well. Sages get to be all over the place, and I can't tell you how commonly I'll have people who with a lot of Sag energy in their chart consult with me, and they say, I have all these things I want to do, I don't know what to do. When Jupiter is involved, and when you have a lot of Sag involved, so whether Jupiter is involved in your transit chart or whether Jupiter is strong in your natal chart, the answer usually is you do all of them, or you do a lot of them. It's not an energy that lends itself to picking one thing. So often Sag energies, and specifically in this time with the way things are concentrated for you, you could get lost in the possibilities of so many things where you like have all these things you want to do and then you wind up doing nothing because you can't figure out what of the choices to do. So what Jupiter wants you to do is put energy towards as many things as possible. Just start the ball rolling. You know, if you have ideas about things, write them down. If you have a book idea, if you want to do publishing things, if you want to do international related things, if you know anything you have ideas, just start to write them all down. When you write them all down, you're starting the process of bringing them into the tangible realms. And if you have possibilities, like people are coming to you, which is going to be very common in this period of time for Sages, this fall, October into November, people are going to be coming at you with, how about this, how about this, how about this, how about this? And some of the things you're going to have to say, I can't do it all at once. But as many things as you can at least engage in openness about, it's going to serve you very well. Okay, so let's get back to Jupiter. When Jupiter moves into the 10th house, so the 10th, Virgo is the 10th solar house for Sag. But most of you Sages are not going to have Jupiter in your 10th house for a while. You still have it in your 9th house. And you late degree Sag placements, you just recently had Jupiter move into your 9th house. So wherever Jupiter goes, it brings luck, it brings opportunity, it brings expansion, it wants the fingers in a lot of pudding pies, it wants, to plant seeds. The seeds that you plant now in those fields of experience where Jupiter is can grow over the next 12 years. So that's why you don't want to be conservative with the things you're putting out in every direction. So be your Saggy self when it comes to things with Jupiter. Early degree placements, this is very specific to your career, your work, your life purpose. Okay, so many people, when Jupiter is in their 10th house, they'll have a second source of their work. Maybe they have a regular job, then they add a side job, or maybe they have one business and they add other businesses. It lends itself to multiple streams of income and multiple projects, and that is a good place for it. When the middle to later degree Sag placements, in the future you're going to have this short-term energy of Mercury, Sun, Venus, Mars all move into your 10th house of career and work. That's going to be like into November. But in the later term, like into next year, you're going to have Jupiter move there. But right now, while all this energy is in the 9th house, you're planting seeds in the things that are going to become the expansion in your work in the future. Now, for those of you who have businesses that are very 9th house based, then this is going to seem like one and the same. Okay, so if you do Saggy things for work, if you teach either at a university or teach your own curriculum, if you do anything with international business, anything with religion or helping people involving spiritual things, if you're a healer, if you do publishing, writing, communicating in any different ways like that, writing books, writing blogs, things like that, Saggy things. If those things are your business, it's going to be hard for you to differentiate between the expansion happening in the 9th house and the expansion coming in the 10th house, because it's one and the same for you. Okay, so it's going to seem like a couple of years of this super long work expansion cycle, because your 9th house is being expanded, but that's also your work. So your 10th house is being expanded while your 9th house is being expanded. But that's what's going on. So some important questions to ask yourself if you still have a job that you don't like, or if you are unsure about what you want to do this little test. And you can either look at yourself in the mirror when you do this, or ask a friend to watch you, or just kind of feel what it feels like. If you describe what you're doing now, then how does your energy feel? And if you describe things that you want to do, how does your energy feel? So I think when I think about this example, I think about when I had a job working for a pharmaceutical company many moons ago. This is like over 11 years ago now. And when I would talk about teaching and helping people and astrology and healing things and writing, I would get like this, like my energy would go, woo, like that. And I could feel it, and it was all smiles, and my face hurt from smiling so much. And then if you'd ask me about my work, I would be like, oh, well, it's good, and it's steady income, and it's, I have nice friends there, and blah, blah, blah. I don't have to worry about money because of that, and then like my energy's like this. But then as soon as you bring up the topic of the other stuff, they say, oh, I want to do this, and I want to write books, and I want to help people, and I want to blah, 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 whatever, right? Okay, so that's how you can tell if you're on the right track, is how your energy is when you describe things. And specifically now, and in the coming times, Jupiter wants to help you get out of whatever makes you like, and get you into whatever makes you like that. Okay, so do that test with yourself if you're not sure. And even when you're describing things that you want to do, I just recently had an experience of this with a friend of mine who I, brainstorm with sometimes, and it just kind of like say things out loud and we see how he feels. So we were talking about a possible direction of something I was thinking of doing, and she's already doing those things. So as she was describing what is involved with those things, I was like, kind of like flat, and said, wow, I like the idea of it, and maybe in the future it will be different, but I feel like, when I think about doing that right now, I feel So guess what? I'm not going to focus on that. But then she said, well, what are you getting worked up about? Or I thought, I can't remember, it's all kind of gelling together, but somebody brought up the topic, like, what gets you really excited, one to the other. And so we started talking about that. And those things are what I'm going to put my focus into. And that's I made a mental note of that to talk to you about this now, because even when you're doing something that you love, even if you feel like you're really on the right track, the way to figure out among the choices what you should be focusing on are the things that make you light up. So that's a big lesson of what Jupiter is doing right now. You know, people say that Sagittarius tend to be more lucky and they tend to carry more magic with them because Jupiter is their ruling planet and Jupiter is the planet of luck and expansion. And I think that it's not, I mean, maybe there are aspects of something that you're born with that bring those things, but it's available to everyone. And for the people that have it, it can be further expanded because it's a way of being. The way that brings luck is a Saggy way of being. And the more Sag you have, or the more you act in that way, the more you bring in these good things. So being optimistic, being positive, having a good attitude, looking at the bright side, looking at creative solutions, focusing on win-win, looking at the bigger picture, you know, looking at things like from a cloud at the bigger perspective of things. Those are the kind of things that bring more magic into your life, and Sagittarius have that because they naturally, that's just how energy moves through them. But you can expand these Jupiter transits by being more that way. Now, as I'm saying that, we also have Saturn moving into Sag, and this is like the counterforce to everything that I'm talking about. So Saturn wants you to bring those big dreams into fruition when it's in Sagittarius. And it's actually, you know, what we've just gone through with Saturn and Scorpio, it's a much more difficult energy. Saturn in that house is much heavier than it is where it's going now in this, the energy of Sagittarius. So this is the combination with Jupiter and Saturn. They're like these opposing forces where there are certain details that are going to not make you as happy that you have to do to get to where you want to be. So it's a little tricky because you have to take that in consideration. Saturn's going to be here for years saying to Sagittarius and to everybody, you have to focus on the details to get your big visions out there. You know, that's the story of it. And if you have any hot air in what you're doing that isn't substantiated, Saturn wants you to start substantiating things, either through practice or through principle. So you've got that counterforce of Saturn coming in, but that's the makings for something epic. That you have the lessons of discipline in certain areas and the lessons of expansion in other areas, and it's happening all at the same time. So that's the general story of what we have going on for Sagittarius and for the general astrology. Go to my website, aspiritualspark.com. You can see more about my personal coaching. You can also, depending on when you're watching this, I'll be posting soon some information about some of the graduates from my astrology apprenticeship program who feel ready to work with you. So if you're drawn to interact with them, you can see that through my website now or coming soon. Also, definitely sign up for my free email newsletter, which makes you part of my community. And you get all kinds of free perks, including this summary that I do of the astrological highlights of the month to come, where I talk about details that I don't always have time to talk about in the horoscope. So you get some additional information to help you with your planning and understanding and utilizing the energies. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you soon. Bye.